Hello students, Namaste. My name is Neha and I'm here with the second chapter of class 11th biology of CBSE. So we will see the second chapter. It is called biological classification as I have written over here, and we'll see both for NEET and CBSE. And so the second chapter is having many parts, different parts such as 1.1, 2.1, 2.2, etc. So keeping all of that in one video will not be a great option, because if you want to revise only one portion of that video, only one portion of that chapter, so you can revise from that from a certain video. You can watch that video or a certain topic if you want to revise it quickly. So this time I am going to make smaller videos with specific topics which will be easy for you to revise. So let's start with our second chapter, biological classification. Now with our first lecture video, we saw that what is classification. Classification, I have found a new word and I have included today it in our lecture, and it is called assortment या छांटना. हिंदी में इसको छांटना बोलेंगे assortment को. तो in order to understand any chapter in any subject, we should always look at the title, that what is the title of the chapter and what is the main reason we are reading the chapter, or the word I called, what is the motto of this chapter. What is the reason why we are reading this particular chapter? So, and that reason can be clearly understood with the help of the title. So let's see. Biological classification. Now, biological word has already been discussed, but I'll tell once again that biological means relating to life, relating to study of life. Biology means study of life. Biological means relating to study of life. Again, classification, छांटना, अलग अलग करना. मेरे पास I have, let's say I have a few chairs, a few tables, a few books, some copies, some pens. Now how am I going to say what is what? I am going to assort them. उनको छांटेंगे, अलग अलग करेंगे, right? So the biological assortment is called biological classification. Now classification is done on various basis. माने अलग अलग, we take into account various things to classify. We take into account various things to classify. What do we take into account? If we are classifying in books and chairs and pens and tables, what we are seeing, that table is made up of wood or it is made up of iron. Is the chair does the chair have arms, मतलब बाहें हैं कि नहीं? Does the pen have a cap or it is a click pen? Is the pencil made up of plastic or it is made up of wood? These kinds of things. So, classification. Now, if you have seen the lecture before this one, you must be knowing the definition of classification. But if you are new, classification is grouping. Grouping of organisms. Grouping of organisms on the basis of similarity or dissimilarity. Are there any similarities in these two organisms, or are there any dissimilarities in the given two organisms? That we see and accordingly we classify. This pen is red. I will keep it in the pile of red. It is black. I will keep it in the pile of black. Okay, so we have understood the topic, the heading of the chapter, biological classification. Now, what is the need of classification? Why are we classifying so much? What is the need of putting it in different groups? There is a lot of need of this. Why? Because maybe I have to study only, I am interested in studying only plants. Now, why will I go and study animals? Or maybe there is a scientific research going on which is based upon animals. Why will it go and waste its time on plants? Now, how will it know what is plants? How will it know what is animals? That is the reason we do classification, in order to understand what is plant, what is animal, what is rice, what is dal. How are we going to know? When we give it a name, when we give it a place, when we give it a classification, right? Now, classification has a story, so it is a very this story has been written, or this story has been evolved over the passage of time. When I say passage of time, not from 100 years, 200 years, no, thousands of years. Thousands of years. Why? Because early man, when there was early man, they used to think that I should classify my cattle, my predators, my crops one side, my wild crops one side, my cattle that can grow in that can give me milk and food one side, my those animals that eat my cattle in one side. So there has always been a classification since the beginning of time, since the beginning of humanization. Wherever there has been a group present, there has been classification. Now, in earlier times, in olden times, when there was no need or no way to classify in the scientific way, people used to classify as as domesticated, or as jungle organisms. Like my cows and buffaloes and goats, all these were domestic, all these are for domestication, so these are domestic animals. Lions, tigers, leopards, cheetah, elephants, all these are my predators. They eat my domesticated animals, so they are there. The horses, the what you call mules, the elephants, the giraffes, or the camels, not giraffes, the camels, all these are animals which will pull my cart, or which will take me from one place to another. So these are classified as my communication, commute organisms, right? So from the starting of time, there has been a classification for our own needs. Like we wanted to classify, the humans have wanted to have a clear division so that they don't mix up these organisms and they don't get into trouble. Then came the era of thought, the era of idea. What? Early Greeks like Aristotle, uh, Pythagoras, like Socrates, Theophrastus, all of these were thinkers. They used to think a lot about all the things. Aristotle has thought about constellations in the sky, has thought about maths, has thought about biology, what are plants, what are animals. They have thought about, philosophical ideas also. But keeping all this aside, why I'm telling you this, that because of Aristotle. Now, our man Aristotle, he was a great thinker and early Greek. Aristotle. And this name I am sure you must have heard many times in different subjects. So, what Aristotle did, he was like, okay, now there are, he divided plants and animals. He divided plants and animals. So very easy to divide. Plants, they do not move from one place to another. They are probably green in color. They grow with the help of sunlight, and they give us fruit. So it was easy for him to distinguish between plants and animals. But within plants and animals also, he did some classification. In plants, he was like, this is herb, this is shrub, and this is tree. So herb, shrub and tree. He was like, okay, now there are many plants. Some plants are of this kind, so I will call it herb. Some of that kind, might call it shrub. Some are of this kind, let me call it tree. Then he was like, okay, animals. So he was like, how should I classify animals? So he gave two classifications. One that have blood in red color, and two that have blood, but he didn't use the word blood because it was another color pigment, or no blood, So Aristotle, our thinker, he thought that okay, I can see these kind of organisms going around me, so I will classify them into plants and animals. Not exactly using the words plants and animals, because in Greek they used to use words that were from the Greek language, or Latin was used at that time. That's why a lot of words that are used till date are very similar, or that those words are only used. So we will see further. Then he was like, okay, now plants and animals are divided into shrubs, herbs and trees. And for animals, those having red blood or those having another colored pigment in place of blood. So this was the earliest kind of classification that was done. In a not in a scientific way, but yes, these arguments were of logic. Like they were not fully illogical, so that they can be told as kind of scientific. But then came the scientific era, when we could have when there was starting to get scientific proofs, when we were starting to see with a perspective of science, with a perspective of chemicals, and there can be let's say there can be a little bit of physics involved. There can be, it is not it was thought that not all of it was God's creation, but some scientific aspect were starting to bud. मतलब धीरे धीरे साइंटिफिक थॉट जो है ह्यूमंस में वो इवॉल्व हो रहा था. तो इसमें सबसे पहले फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हु केम फॉरवर्ड वाज लिनेयस. आफ्टर Aristotle, in probably, I'm not going to specify the date because I'm not really sure, so let's keep it there. Then came our favorite Carl von Linné, or Carolus Linnaeus. He was like, okay, I can classify into Plantae and Animalia. He classified into Plantae, AE in the end, so Plantae and Animalia. Now it is again similar to Aristotle's kind of classification, but it was further more scientific because he used a little bit more logic in the fact that he was like plants have a cell wall, animals do not have a cell wall. Plants they make their own food, animals they don't make their own food, they eat another plant-based stuff or another animal. So these logics were given by Carl von Linné, Carolus Linnaeus. But still there were a few drawbacks in his kind of classification. So what were the drawbacks? What made us think of the three kingdom classification, 4 and 5 and 6, all other kinds of kingdoms of classification? So if I say that in Carolus Linnaeus's classification, Plantae and Animalia are given, he was grouping such big diversity of fungi, of algae, of mollusks, of sea animals. Some of the sea animals, they were also grouped into Plantae. And some animals some plants, something like a fungi, some fungi were given into plants, some the algae were given into animals. So very much confusion and very much cross linking was there. Some of the animals were put into plants, plants were put into animals. Now this made a lot of confusion, and there was no classification of bacteria. There was no evolutionary relationship taken into account. There was no some like cell wall or nutritional classification was not done. Nutritional classification meaning that taking into account what kind of food they eat, not taking into account how they make that food. So all of this was not taken into account. So another scientist came along called Ernest Haeckel, and he was like, I will give three kingdom classification. So with along with plant and animal, I will add Protista. So he added Protista. So in Protista, there is single cell organisms, but they are excuse me, they are also eukaryotic. So after Carl von Linné, there was Ernest Haeckel, then came Copeland. He was like, okay, Plantae, Animalia, Protista, let me add Monera. Let me add Monera, which is bacteria. Up until now, all of this here, all we can see is those animals which are fairly visible. Plantae visible, Animalia visible, Protist not fully visible. They are also seen under a microscope, but Copeland, Ernest Haeckel was like, okay, let me add Protista. Then Copeland came and he was like, no, Monera. These are bacteria. But then still there were some confusion, and still a lot of the doubts were remaining on the basis of cell wall, on the basis of nutrition, on the basis of plasma membrane, on the basis of evolutionary relationships, very important. So still confusion was remaining, and after that came R.H. Whittaker. Now this is the most important one, because Copeland and Ernest Haeckel are not given in the book. These are just extra information. Only Aristotle, Carolus Linnaeus and R.H. Whittaker are given. And similarly also Doolittle is not given. So but these are, because you are going to study for NEET, it is good that you have a little bit more of knowledge. So from Aristotle we went to Carl von Linné, and straight we come to R.H. Whittaker. So this is a primitive kind of classification, two kingdom classification, and especially directly we jump on to five kingdom classification done in the year 1969. Now up until R.H. Whittaker, the four kingdoms Monera, Protista, Plantae and Animalia were already classified. They were already named at least कि ये चार kingdom हैं. But R.H. Whittaker was like, no. If I do further more studies, I am finding out that there is one group of organisms which is even different and which is classified under, some are put under Animalia, some are put under Plantae, but they do not belong there because they are having similar characteristics but not same to the group they are put in. I will make another classification and call it fungi. So R.H. Whittaker gave the classification of fungi. So up until now we have seen that we have come to 5 kingdom classification, which is right now current situation studied, and these 5 are only going to be studied in our chapter further. But after R.H. Whittaker, there is one more classification, but it is relating to something called domain. So let me finish up until R.H. Whittaker. There are some more things that I want to tell you, and after that we will move on to 6 kingdom classification or the domain classification, and then we will do Monera in this video. So up until now, I have told you that we have had Aristotle, we have had Linnaeus, we have had, okay, this figure over here. I completely forgot to mention it in the starting, but it is a very, very interesting, very, very important figure. Now this is a figure, you are saying, what figure? This is just bubbles only. No. So in this figure, we have Monera at the baseline, single celled. You all know that organisms have evolved from single cell organisms. These I and you and any other organism, any other animal, plant, everything has evolved from single cell organism, and those single cell organisms are the baseline, the most primitive organisms called the Monera. From Monera, protists have evolved, but we can you might be thinking from protists then fungi will evolve. No, from protist only fungi, Plantae and Animalia, or all three are evolved. This chart is very primitive and very, very important in order to understand evolutionary biology. From Monera, Protista, from Protista only fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So please note this down and keep it in your mind whenever you think of evolutionary biology, that from Monera the protist came along, but from Protista only fungi, Plantae and Animalia have come along. Okay, right. So till here I told you that Linnaeus did 2 kingdom classification, but it was rejected. Why? Because 1, it did not have bacteria. 2, it did not take into account cell wall and cell membrane. 3, it did not take into account nutrition. So we were like, no, this is the classification, we are not going to take it. Then came R.H. Whittaker. In the year 1969. Why I am making you revise the year again and again is because it is given in your book. And if a date is given in the NCERT, please remember it. There is a lot of chance that it will be going to be asked in your NEET examinations. Although it has no significance, there is no need of asking a date, but they ask a date. So 1969, R.H. Whittaker gave the 5 kingdom classification. Now in the last lecture only I told you what is kingdom. So one more time, kingdom is the largest group of organisms in which organisms have the least amount of similarity between them. The largest group having the least amount of similarity. Okay. So R.H. Whittaker gave 5 kingdom classification. Now I told you that we rejected Carl von Linne because these 3 criteria were missing. So what criteria did R.H. Whittaker take that we agreed that okay, this is the one we are going to use, this is the one we are going to study. So the criteria that R.H. Whittaker took, number 1, cell wall. Number 2, cell membrane. Number 3, nucleus. Number 4, nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane. Does the nucleus have a membrane? Number 5, organization. And number 6, nutrition. Cell wall, cell membrane, nucleus, nucleus membrane, nuclear membrane, and nutrition. He did his 5 kingdom classification with the help of these criteria. Cell wall, cell membrane, nucleus, nuclear membrane, organization, and nutrition. Now first let me explain what are all these things, and then we will see that which kingdom has what kind of these things present in them and why they are called, why they are put into the kingdom they are put into as well. So our first kingdom, Monera. All bacteria come under Monera. All and every bacteria come under Monera. Okay. Now first question. Does bacteria have cell wall? Yes. Does it have cell membrane? Yes. Does it have a nucleus? No. Does it have a nuclear membrane? अब न्यूक्लियस ही नहीं है तो न्यूक्लियर मेम्ब्रेन कहाँ से होगा? So no. What is its organization level? Cell level or organization. What is bacteria? Single cell. So we saw that we were seeing Monera, and in that organization level is of cell. That all and every organism that comes under Monera has a cellular level or organization or is a single cell organism. Cellular level organization meaning that its body is made up of only cells, and in case of bacteria the body is made up of single cell. Now that I have come to this part, let me first explain to you what I am saying, what I mean when I say organization level. So level of organization. What do I mean when I say level of organization? I mean cell, a cluster of cell, tissue, a cluster of tissue, organ, a cluster of organ or nicely and specifically and strategically placed organs give organism. Now it will be wrong if I say that only those having all of the level of organization are only organisms. No, a single cell bacteria is also an organization, also an organism. A multicellular human or a plant is also an organism. A fungi, which is tissue level of organization, is also an organism. So the word organism is arbitrary here for saying that what level of organization is there, but this is how it is put step by step, that cells form a cluster called tissue, tissue form a cluster called organ, organs strategically placed are called organism. So here you will get to know the meaning that when I say cell, there is a cellular level of organization. Then comes nutrition. Nutrition means खाना और उस खाने को utilize करना, खाना लेना, to take in food and to utilize that food, right? So in Monera or in bacteria, either or, Nutrition is autotrophic, meaning it makes its own food. Chemotrophic, meaning it makes its own food with the help of chemicals. Heterotrophic, meaning it takes already made food from made organism, that it takes already made organism from outside, like humans. We are heterotrophic. So we take already prepared materials, cook it and eat it, but in case of bacteria there is no need of cooking, so they eat or they engulf it. And saprophytic, meaning already digested food they take in. Alright, so then so we saw that what is a Monera? When any organism has cell wall, has cell membrane, do not have a nucleus, do not have a nuclear membrane, has cellular level of organization, and has autotrophic, chemotrophic, heterotrophic or saprophytic nutrition, it will come under Monera. Then let us move on further to Protista. Now we will answer these same questions and get to know about Protista. So, Protista. Does it have a cell wall? Yes, it does. Does it have a cell membrane? Yes. Nucleus? Yes. Nuclear membrane? Yes. Organization? Cellular. Nutrition? Saprophytic, heterotrophic or holozoic. Now this is a new one, holozoic. What does holozoic mean? Holozoic means when an organism engulfs its food material in its entirety. Meaning, if I eat an apple, I do not bite the apple, I eat one full apple directly into my mouth, then I am a holozoic kind of organism. So protists are holozoic. Now how same it is, most of it is similar like Monera. Then how it is different? The difference is in here. This is a key difference, and this gives rise to two terms called prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Now please give attention to this side of the board, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. All and every Monera or bacteria is prokaryotic, and rest all of these are eukaryotic. Now what is karyotic and what is pro, what is eu? Pro means without or old. Eu means new or with, and carry on means nucleus. So because Monera did not have a nucleus, it is prokaryotic, and because all these Protista, fungi, Plantae, Animalia have a nucleus, they are eukaryotic. So three things we saw: prokaryotic, eukaryotic, meaning having nucleus or not having nucleus. Second, level of organization. Third, level of nutrition. Rest, cell wall and cell membrane are same. Okay, then from Protista, I move on to fungi. From Protista, I move on to fungi. Right, fungi. Fungi, fungus, kuch bhi. Okay, so again we are asking these same questions. Does it have a cell wall? Yes. Now, in cell wall of fungi, there is something very interesting and very important, and it is a protein, and it is called chitin. It is called CHITIN, chitin. It is a protein. It is found only and only in the cell wall of fungi. This is This protein is the reason why fungi is kept into, fungi is made into another entire kingdom. So when researchers were doing research, they found that in Plantae and in some Protista and some animals, we are again and again getting one similar kind of protein, and it is a very large group. So and all of these show similar kind of activities, and all of them have chitin in their cell wall. So let us keep all of this in one group or one kingdom called fungi. Okay, very important. Always and always asked in NEET that what is the special protein found in the cell wall of fungi, or what is the specialization of cell wall of fungi? So it is protein chitin. Okay, does it have a cell membrane? Yes. Does it have a nucleus? Yes. So it is having a nucleus, so it is eukaryotic. Does it have a nuclear membrane? Yes, very well it does. What is the level of organization? Now, Monera and Protista were single cell or cellular level of organization, but here we move a little bit further. We go into tissue level of organization. We go into tissue level of organization. Then what kind of nutrition does it have? So you all know that it is saprophytic or heterotrophic. Heterotrophic only least places, and mostly saprophytic. So all and every organisms which is eukaryotic, having nucleus, having cell wall, and in the cell wall presence of chitin, cell membrane, nuclear membrane, tissue level of organization, having saprophytic level of nutrition is called fungi, is classified under fungi. Then we move up to plants. We move up to plants. We move up to plants or the kingdom Plantae. Let's say Plantae or Plantae, whatever you like. Again, plants are very famous for having cell wall, yes. But similarly, as we had chitin in fungi, we have something called cellulose in plants. It is a kind of sugar or a carbohydrate. Then cell membrane, yes, it has a cell membrane. Nucleus, very well, it has a nucleus. Nuclear membrane, of course, it has a nuclear membrane. Organization, tissue or organ level of organization. There is a little bit of a controversy over here. Why? Because you must have heard about xylem and phloem, and xylem and phloem are tissue bundles. They are tissue bundles, but they can be called as organ, but most accepted is tissue level of organization. So that is why we write tissue or organ level of organization. And plants are very, very famous for their nutrition, which is autotrophic. Autotrophic. This we have read from, I think, class 6-7, that plants have autotrophic kind of nutrition. But some plants are also heterotrophic, like apna Venus flytrap, pitcher plant, which capture the insect for nitrogen fixation. Okay. So Plantae, very important is cellulose. Cell wall hai, there is a presence of cell wall, it has cellulose. Again, similarly, the question is asked that what is the why the cell wall of plants are special and why it is rigid? Because it has cellulose. Then it has cell membrane. Then nucleus, it has nucleus, so called eukaryotic organism. Then it has nuclear membrane, tissue level of organization, and autotrophic nutrition. Then lastly, we come to the classification or kingdom that we belong to, that humans belong to. Now, it can be a little bit of difficulty for you to keep into mind or come into terms with the fact that you and I are all animals, but it's okay. You might know, or you might take some time to understand. Just a joke. Anyway, Animalia. Chalo bhai, once again. Cell wall? No, big no cell wall in animals, any animal, no cell wall. Cell membrane? Yes, again, big yes. Nucleus? Yes. Nuclear membrane? Yes. Organization level? Organ level of organization. Organ level of organization. And nutrition? Two types, heterotrophic and parasitic. Now where parasitic? So like platyhelminthes, ascalhelminthes, leeches, earthworms, different kinds of snails, different kinds of fishes, all of these different kind of these come under parasite, meaning they attack their host and they take nutrition from their host. Okay. So any and every organism which do not have a cell wall, which do have a cell membrane, has a nucleus, has a nuclear membrane, has organ level of organization, sometimes tissue also, but most of the time organ level of organization, and has heterotrophic or parasitic kind of nutrition, comes under the kingdom Animalia. Okay. So we have seen eukaryotic, prokaryotic. We have seen what is level of organization, tissue level of organization, organ level of organization. We have answered all of these questions on the basis on which the Whittaker did the classification. Then I told you that after Whittaker, what happened was Doolittle came along. A scientist called Doolittle came along. Now, Doolittle नाम है. Doolittle मतलब कम करो, कम काम करो. And here he is a scientist, and scientists have to do a lot of work. So it is a joke. He took apart from his name. He did different from his name. He did not do little. He did more. Anyway, so Doolittle came along and he was like, no, I would like to present the sixth kingdom kind of organization. Now you must be thinking, what will be the sixth kingdom? What will be the sixth kingdom after we have classified all kinds of organism in broadly we have classified, but what will come under the, what will be the sixth kingdom? So it was not actually kingdom, it was called domain. DOMAIN. So when we divide kingdom in itself, it is called a domain. So what he did was, he took Monera and divided it into two parts. We had Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. He took Monera and divided into archaebacteria and eubacteria. Now you are saying ki, as I was saying that Monera, all bacteria come under Monera. Then Doolittle came along and he was like archaebacteria and eubacteria. Now what is it that made him to divide it into archaebacteria and eubacteria? He did some research and found out that there are different kinds of cell walls. So we saw that bacteria are having cell wall, but he found out that there are two groups in that also. Two kinds in that also. In one kind there is more layers of the cell wall, and these layers are attached from one another with some bonds. But the other kind of bacteria do not have more layers and they are not attached to one another. Now this, because there are more layers and they are also attached to one another, this gives the bacteria a higher advantage of survival in harsh conditions. Because of this factor, bacteria can survive in more difficult conditions, and these bacteria, because they can survive in difficult conditions, we came to the fact that there were difficult conditions at the starting of evolution, at the starting when the earth began. There was very high temperature and then very low temperature, the ice age, or there was very high desert or very too much saline water. So these bacteria must have survived all of those times, and then they have come into this world which is favorable for them. So they are very old. These bacteria are very old because they can survive. Why? Because of their cell wall. So this old word became archae. Archae means old. And these bacteria were put under archaebacteria. And then he was like, the group that is left, this group that is left, which have which are fairly new meaning billions of years old, but still in comparison to the archaebacteria, they are newer. They were put under eubacteria, where EU means new. EU means new. So, after R.H. Whittaker's 5 kingdom classification, Doolittle came along, did some research, found out this, gave 2 domains under one kingdom, archaebacteria and eubacteria. Archaebacteria and eubacteria. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our discussion, but till here I have completed the first introduction of this chapter 2, but there are a few things I would like to discuss. One, that in the chapter there is given that why there was a need of classification. It has been explained with the example of cyanobacteria, that cyanobacteria was put into plants first of all, then it was put into algae, but it is neither, it is a bacteria. It is a bacteria. So it is called blue-green bacteria. So cyanobacteria was put in the wrong kingdom. So this is one example why classification was needed. Then another example is of fungi, that some organisms that were having tissue level of organization and having chitin, they were distributed into different groups, and then we were like, no, we shouldn't keep these in different groups, we should form entirely another kingdom for it called the fungi. Then similar examples are given, and at last it is written and it is told kind of to the new students that more and more classification will happen as we move along with time. So we have to and we should keep an open mind in order that there will be more and more classification, and this classification that we are using right now will not be the ultimate last one. Classification will keep happening. Why? Because more scientific knowledge will come along, more organisms will be discovered, more high technology will come around, and we will discover new things which might do something like, I have to put an organism from one kingdom and put into another, or I have to make one entire new kingdom separately for something new that is discovered. So always keep an open mind, it is told in the chapter, and it is told that phylogenetic relationships are going to be taken into account more and more. Till now we were taking morphology, physiology, anatomy into account, but now we have started taking into account phylogenetic relationships as well, meaning evolutionary relationships, which will also contribute in the classification factors. Okay. So with this I have completed my introduction to second chapter. In the next lecture I will tell you about kingdom Monera, and I will have there will be different lectures for different kingdoms, one for Monera, Protista, one for fungi, Plantae and Animalia combined, because there is very little given in this chapter for Plantae and Animalia. There are 2 different chapters for them in further syllabus, and the last lecture will be for viroids, prions, viruses and lichens. So I would like to ask you one question. Please answer in the comments that would you like to have my notes. So if you would like to have my notes, I will put it in the description box, and please ask as much questions as you can in the comment box, and I will link my notes if you like them. So here with this we finish our chapter, not our chapter, sorry, we finish our lecture 1 of chapter 2. See you soon.